An hour before my wedding, my stepsister claimed my fiancé wanted to run away with her. I knew she was lying, so I called her husband and exposed her. Instead of ruining my wedding, she destroyed her own marriage. My parents blamed me, but I cut them off. I chose happiness over family drama, and I have zero regrets. I recently got married to my boyfriend of almost 7 years. His name is Noah, and we're both 25. The wedding was a beautiful celebration, and my whole family was invited, including my stepsister, Charlotte, who is 24. Our parents got married when I was 9, and she was 8. My mom married her dad. It wasn't a difficult adjustment since we had known each other for years before that. Our parents had been together for nearly 3 years before their wedding, and Charlotte and I first met when I was 6 and she was 5. Back then, we got along really well. I lived in a neighborhood without many kids my age, so whenever Charlotte and her dad visited, I was thrilled. We played together, spent hours talking, and even as we grew older, our bond remained strong. She was more than a sister, she was my best friend. At least, she was until high school. That's when things started to go south, and honestly, it was such a cliché. A boy. Before I get to that, here's some background. My biological father cheated on my mom with her friend while she was pregnant with me. Then he just up and left, completely abandoning us. He didn't want anything to do with me or my mom, so he signed away his parental rights and vanished. They were never married, so she never saw him again. My grandparents were well off, and my mom refused to take a cent of child support from him. She didn't want anything that tied her to him. So, I never met the man and have no idea who he is. Charlotte's mother, on the other hand, passed away when she was very young due to serious health issues that were only made worse by pregnancy. Her father had full custody of her, just like my mom had full custody of me. When our parents got together, we became inseparable. We were so close in age that it felt like having a built-in best friend. We even ended up in the same grade since Charlotte started school early. Then came high school. That's when we met Noah. His family had just moved to our town, and he was the new kid. I liked him right away. Unfortunately, so did Charlotte. He was charming, kind, and let's be real ridiculously attractive. We had both dated other guys before, but those relationships felt like kid stuff. Noah was different. I could tell Charlotte had feelings for him too, so I did what any good sister would do. I talked to her about it. We made a promise to each other. Neither of us would try to pursue him. We weren't going to let some boy ruin our bond. We were just teenagers with a crush, right? We figured it would pass, but it didn't. Since the three of us shared a lot of classes, we became close friends. The more I got to know Noah, the harder I fell for him. He was exactly the kind of guy I had always wanted. But I had made a promise, so I kept my feelings in check. No flirting, no hints. Meanwhile, Noah, completely unaware of our agreement, kept flirting with me, and I ignored it. I couldn't let myself fall for him, not when I knew how much Charlotte liked him. We never talked about him, ever. Not at school, not at home. It was an unspoken rule between us. This went on for years. Then, senior year happened. Everyone was pairing up for prom, and I was about to say yes to another guy when I found out something that flipped everything upside down. Charlotte had asked Noah to prom. She didn't just ask him to be her déchet, confessed her feelings, told him she wanted to be more than friends. I was stunned. After all those years, after that promise we made to each other, she did exactly what she swore she wouldn't, and she made me swear the same. It hurt, badly. But what shocked me even more was what Noah said next. He turned her down. He told me he had only ever seen her as a friend. He admitted that he always felt like she was trying to win him over, but he had never felt that way about her. And then, he dropped the biggest bombshell of all. He had always liked me. Always. Since the day we met, and he had been waiting for me to give him a chance. I never gave Noah any signs of interest. Never once did I let myself slip, no matter how much I wanted to. But now that our final year of high school was coming to an end, and we were all about to head off to different colleges, he needed an answer. He told me straight up either I admitted that I had feelings for him, or I told him I didn't, so he could finally move on and ask someone else to prom. I still remember that day so clearly because it changed everything. After that conversation, I felt completely shattered. Not only had Noah just told me he had been in love with me for years, but he also revealed something else, that Charlotte had spent all that time relentlessly trying to win him over. Despite the promise we had made to each other, it hurt, because she wasn't just my best friend, she was my sister. After Noah told me everything, I told him I needed a day to think. I needed to process it all before I could give him an answer. But deep down, I knew that my response would depend entirely on a conversation I needed to have with Charlotte. That day, I skipped the rest of my classes. I couldn't sit through another lesson pretending like everything was fine, not when my entire world felt like it was caving in. Instead, I went home early and waited. When Charlotte finally got back, she was acting like nothing had happened. She didn't mention Noah. She didn't say a single word about inviting him to prom. She was just normal. Like she hadn't just shattered our trust. So I brought it up myself. I asked her straight out, was it true? Had she invited Noah to prom and confessed her feelings? The second I said it, she got defensive. Told me it wasn't my business, that it was between her and Noah. Not my business? She made me promise not to pursue him. She made me swear to something she was never planning to keep herself. I had buried my feelings for years for her sake, while she had spent all that time chasing after him. And now she wanted to pretend like I had no right to be upset? It was bullshit. Because I didn't just like Noah, I was pretty sure I loved him. And every single day, I had forced myself to ignore his attention, his flirting, his kindness, just to protect my relationship with her. And she wasn't willing to do the same for me. When I laid it all out for her, the years of betrayal, the hypocrisy, she didn't even try to apologize. She just got angry. We fought loud, ugly, years of resentment boiling over in one night. And in the middle of it, she snapped and told me the truth. The only reason she had made that promise in the first place was because she was convinced that if Noah ever had to choose between us, he'd pick her, not me. That was it. That was the moment I realized I couldn't trust her anymore. The next day, I told Noah everything. I told him about Charlotte's promise, about our fight, about the things she had said to me. He listened, and then he told me something that changed my life. He was willing to wait, however long it took. But I didn't want him to wait. I told him I loved him, that I had always loved him, and that I didn't want to deny it anymore. We started dating that very same day. That was 7 years ago. 7 years of happiness, of knowing I had made the right choice. Of course, cutting Charlotte out wasn't easy. For Noah, it was simply had never been close to her. But for me, I had to live with her under the same roof. We shared a room, and after everything that had happened, it was unbearable. Eventually, she moved into the basement to stay away from me, and I was perfectly fine with that. Our parents tried to figure out what had happened between us, but neither of us ever told them. I don't know what she said, but I chose silence. We just stopped talking. And yeah, it was awkward at first, but over time, we adjusted. We both went off to college, Noah and I together. Charlotte, on the other side of the country. I barely saw her. Maybe once or twice a year at holidays, where we kept things polite. We weren't sisters anymore, not really. Just distant acquaintances who shared a complicated history. Eventually, life moved on. Charlotte started dating someone from her college. We all got jobs, grew up, and our teenage drama started to feel like something out of an old television show, petty and irrelevant. At family gatherings, we learned how to be civil. We made small talk, never anything deep, and that was fine. It worked. Then, last year, she got engaged. She told the family, and I congratulated her, formally, distantly. She even said she'd be happy to have me at her wedding, and for a brief moment, it stung. Because when we were kids, we had always promised each other that we'd be each other's bridesmaids. But now, I was just another guest. I thought I was happy that we were finally acting like adults, making an effort to be civil. But deep down, it hurt knowing that things would never go back to how they used to be. Since then, we had maintained a neutral relationship, and it seemed like Charlotte had finally made peace with Noah's presence in my life. Of course, I made a conscious decision not to bring him as my date to her wedding. It would have been weird, maybe even disrespectful, even though she seemed to have completely moved on. But she noticed. At the reception, as we exchanged polite conversation, she told me I could have brought him, that she had long since let go of the past and didn't care anymore. Maybe I should have known better than to believe her. Because what happened recently made it very clear she hadn't let go of anything. She was still the same selfish, jealous girl she had always been. 8 months ago, Noah proposed. Of course I said yes. It was a great time in our lives. She had just gotten a promotion at work, and I had left my job to join a startup with my best friend. Everything felt like it was falling into place. I was looking forward to a peaceful, drama-free wedding. Maybe I should have known better than to invite Charlotte if that was what I really wanted. She congratulated me on my engagement, but that was it. I thought things were fine between us. She accepted the wedding invitation, and I had no reason to believe anything would go wrong. I was wrong. A week ago, on the day of my wedding, Charlotte made one last, desperate attempt to ruin everything. We got married at a countryside hotel, and most of our family and closest friends were staying there for the weekend. Noah and I, along with our parents, the bridal party, and groomsmen, arrived 2 days early to get settled in. The other guest relatives, friends, and out-of-town attendees were expected to arrive the day before the wedding. Charlotte and her husband were supposed to arrive with them, but they didn't. Instead, they showed up on the same day as us, 2 days early. It caught us off guard, but they brushed it off as a mistake. And, unfortunate though maybe, in hindsight, it was fortunate the hotel had extra rooms available, so they were able to check in. I genuinely believed it was just an innocent mistake. I didn't think anything of it. I had no idea what she was planning. But on the morning of my wedding, I finally found out. While I was getting my hair and makeup done, I kept noticing Charlotte lingering around my room. It was odd. Most of the guests were either in their rooms or enjoying the hotel amenities after all. We had practically booked out the entire place. People were free to relax before the ceremony, so there was no reason for her to be pacing outside my door, especially since she wasn't part of the bridal party. It made me uneasy, but I had other things to focus on. By the time I was ready, my bridesmaids and mom left to get dressed themselves. The ceremony was an hour away, so I decided to take a short walk down the hallway near my room to clear my head. I couldn't leave the floor. I didn't want anyone to see me in my dress before the wedding. And that's when Charlotte intercepted me. She pulled me aside and said she needed to talk, that it was important. It was strange. We weren't close enough anymore for her to have something so urgent to tell me. But curiosity got the better of me, and I let her speak. And that's when she started her performance. She told me that coming to the hotel 2 days early hadn't been a mistake. It had been planned by Noah. According to her, he had asked her to come. He had wanted her there. She claimed she had no idea why at first, but then she dropped her bombshell. Noah had supposedly asked her to run away with him. She told me that 2 weeks before the wedding, Noah had reached out to her, saying he was having doubts, that he wasn't sure marrying me was the right choice, that he had realized he didn't love me anymore, he loved her. According to her, they had been talking behind my back for months, and he had finally come to terms with his true feelings. That's why he had invited her to the hotel early to convince her to run away with him before it was too late. She went on, saying that while she had been staying at the hotel, Noah had been pressuring her, begging her to leave with him. That he couldn't bring himself to tell me in person because he was afraid of how I'd react, afraid I'd lose control. That he didn't want to take responsibility for my inevitable breakdown. She looked me dead in the eyes and tried to make me believe that the man I had loved for 7 years, the man I was about to marry in less than an hour, had planned to leave me for her. Apparently, my dear Charlotte just couldn't go through with such a betrayal. She told me she felt obligated to tell me the truth, to spare me from the heartbreak. And, of course, she picked the perfect moment to do so just an hour before my wedding. I saw through her bullshit immediately. I trusted Noah. I knew he would never do something like this. He had always been straightforward, brutally honest even. If he had doubts, he would have told me himself to my fascinaut, orchestrated some shady, behind-the-scenes escape plan. Neither of us were the kind of people who ran from problems. The story Charlotte was spinning didn't fit him at all, and I knew, without a shred of doubt, that she was lying. I was furious. Not just because she was lying, but because she was pretending to care about me, acting like she was doing me some huge favor, looking out for me, when in reality, she was just trying to create drama and ruin my wedding day. So I decided to hit her where it hurt. Right in front of her, I pulled out my phone and called her husband. I didn't have his number, but I followed him on Instagram, so I called him through there. I made sure to keep my back turned to Charlotte so she couldn't see what I was doing. She didn't stop me because in her mind, I was probably calling Noah to confront him or even break things off with him. That's what she wanted. She never considered that I might be calling her husband instead. Luckily, he picked up, and in the calmest, most broken-sounding voice I could muster, I repeated everything Charlotte had just told me and asked him if it was true. Charlotte remained silent, still thinking I was talking to Noah. I don't even know what she thought was going to happen. Did she really think I wouldn't check their messages? That I wouldn't verify her story? It was so easy to disprove. When I finished speaking, I put the call on speaker so Charlotte could hear her husband's reaction. And, of course, he was shocked. He told me he had no idea what the hell she was talking about and that none of it was true. He said he was coming back to the room immediately. That's when Charlotte realized what was happening. That I wasn't talking to Noah at all. She panicked. She started screaming at me, accusing me of trying to ruin her marriage. I just smiled and told her I had done nothing more than what she had tried to do to me. Then I walked away. I went back to my room, told my bridesmaids what had happened, and made it very clear I didn't want Charlotte anywhere near my wedding. I didn't trust her. I didn't want her lurking around, waiting for another chance to sabotage the day. But in the end, I didn't even have to worry. The ceremony went perfectly. Charlotte never showed up. I imagine she was too busy trying to do damage control with her husband. No one even noticed she was missing except for our parents, who asked me about her after the ceremony. I told them I'd explain later, but honestly, I had zero intention of ever bringing it up again. It didn't matter to me anymore. After the wedding, I called the hotel to check on Charlotte's room. To my surprise, they told me she had checked out during the wedding. She and her husband had left. No one ever mentioned her again, and I was glad. I just wanted to enjoy my new life with Noah, free of all the childish drama she had tried to drag me back into. A few days later, I finally told Noah about what had happened. We laughed at how desperate and pathetic she had been, thinking she could ruin our relationship with such an obvious lie. That was the end of it, or so I thought. Then, a week later, our parents dropped another bombshell. Charlotte and her husband were getting divorced. Apparently, her husband had called them furious, demanding that they take her back because she refused to leave his house. He threatened to call the cops if she didn't get out. So, they went to get her. And that's when they found out that her marriage had completely fallen apart. Her husband told them everything. Turns out, he had already known that Charlotte was obsessed with Noah. He had heard about it before, but he thought it was just a stupid, lingering crush. Then, at our wedding, he realized it was something much worse. Because, apparently, Charlotte never let go of the idea that she was meant to be with Noah. She had spent years telling her friends that she should have ended up with him instead of me. And, of course, her friends had encouraged this delusion. Her husband had tried to ignore it, to pretend it didn't bother him. But when she tried to ruin my wedding, that was the last straw. That was when he finally saw her for who she really was. That was when he decided he didn't want to be married to her anymore. And here's the kicker: me parents blame me for their divorce. They think I shouldn't have involved her husband, that my phone call was what ruined their marriage. Now, they're expecting me to apologize to her. They're refusing to speak to me because I made it clear I'm not apologizing. I honestly don't understand how any of this could possibly be my fault. I never asked Charlotte to act like a complete psycho. All I did was give her a taste of her own medicine. She tried to ruin the most important day of my life, and I just hit back. She destroyed her own marriage, and I had nothing to do with it. Noah feels the same way I do, but my parents and a lot of mutual friends took Charlotte's side, and it's driving me insane. So, let's hit pause for a moment and ask, did I do the right thing, or was I wrong to strike back at my sister? Update 1. First of all, I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post and reassured me that I wasn't at fault. It helped me realize just how unfair my parents and some of my so-called friends were being. In the end, I decided to cut them off. Honestly, I don't see any other way. If I don't, they'll just keep blaming me, making me feel awful about something that wasn't my fault. And at some point, under that kind of pressure, anyone could break. I refuse to apologize to Charlotte. So, really, this is for the best. After all, isn't this exactly what my parents wanted? They were the ones who stopped speaking to me because I wouldn't apologize. Well, now they got what they wanted. I'm not speaking to them either. As for those so-called friends, if they want to stand by Charlotte and paint me as the villain, they can go right ahead. This whole mess was an eye-opener. It showed me they were never really my friends to begin with. Anyone with a brain can see Charlotte was the one at fault. And if anyone owes an apology, it sure as hell isn't me. Honestly, I don't even care about changing anyone's mind. Let them believe whatever they want. The only thing that matters to me right now is spending time with Noah. That's all I care about. Update 2. Noah and I went on our honeymoon. It's been almost 2 weeks since the wedding, and I still haven't spoken to my parents. Cutting off the so-called friends wasn't hard. I never felt particularly close to them anyway. But not talking to my parents? That hurts. Every time something funny happens, my first instinct is to call my mom or text my stepdad. Then I remember I can't, because they chose Charlotte. As far as I know, she's still living with them, probably feeding them lie after lie, trying to turn them completely against me. By the time we get back, they'll probably hate me. I can somewhat understand my stepdad. Charlotte is his biological daughter, of course. He wants to be on her side. But my mom? She knows what betrayal feels like. She went through this herself when my dad cheated on her with her best friend. How can she not see that Charlotte tried to do the exact same thing to me? She tried to destroy my relationship with Noah so she could have him for herself. If anyone should understand why I reacted the way I did, it's her. But if she doesn't, if she really thinks I'm the villain here, I don't even know what to say. For now, though, I just want to focus on enjoying this honeymoon. Hopefully, it'll help me clear my head. Update 3. On the 3rd day of our honeymoon, I got a text from my mom, but I didn't open it. Not yet. Right now, I want to live in the moment. Noah and I are having the best time, and if that message turns out to be something upsetting, I'd rather deal with it later. I know it might sound weird, but you only get one honeymoon, and I want to enjoy it. Update 4. We're back home, and the first thing I did after landing, I read my mom's message. She told me they had let Charlotte stay with them for a few days, but it had become unbearable. Apparently, all she did was talk shit about me constantly, nonstop. At some point, my parents finally hit their limit. They finally realized the truth. Charlotte really had tried to sabotage my wedding, and they kicked her out. Now, they want to make amends. They invited me and Noah over for dinner this weekend, saying they regret taking her side. My mom admitted that they only supported her because they felt her divorce was a bigger issue at the time. They didn't know how to handle her emotional meltdown, so they made some bad choices. But now, they see their mistake, and they want to apologize. Honestly, I'm so relieved. Noah and I already agreed to go to dinner. I think this will help us repair our relationship. And I really hope we never find ourselves in this situation again. Thank you for your attention. Subscribe, leave a like, and have a great day.